Hi, I'm the Dreaded Geek. Welcome back. Today we're going to be doing another preview of another game by Laboratory Games. It's a simple deck building game called 100 Swords. As with all deck building games, there's a deck of various cards that can be purchased into your individual player decks. Starting cards that you start with in your player deck, and a basic mechanism for purchasing cards that we'll get into in a second. The theme of this game is a dungeon crawl, a simple dungeon exploration. The cards that are available for purchase represent rooms in the dungeon that start off face down. And the player, represented by this position marker card, moves into the dungeon as many rooms as they like and acts on the card in that room. Cards from your hand can be played for movement, strength, or energy. All cards, unless it says otherwise, can be played for 1 energy. Item cards can be bought for a set number of energy. They will strengthen your deck and allow you to do better against monsters and items in future, and give you victory points. Monster cards, besides having some special effects, will give you victory points. They do not go into your deck when defeated, but into your trophy pile, and only count for the victory points at the end of the game. Oh, that's a monster card. This is a door card. The door requires a key, and also goes into your trophy deck for victory points at the end of the game. As with most deck building games, the cards you start with in hand are less useful than most. There is one card called the Awkward Sword that's actually halfway decent in the starting cards. You draw a hand of 5, you play cards for movement that allow you to move into the dungeon, for strength to defeat monsters, or for energy to buy items. Let me walk through what a sample turn might look like. If I start with these 5 cards in my hand, the boots are only useful for movement, so I will play the boots for 2 movement, and I'll move to this room. I look at the card in secret, and if it's a monster, I have to reveal it. Because this one isn't a monster, I can choose not to reveal it. Play a sword for 1 more movement, move on to the next room to see what's there. It's a monster, so I have to reveal it. And in future turns, players will not be able to move past this monster without first defeating it. Because I've just revealed it, I can choose to run further into the dungeon if I don't defeat it, so I can still move on and have a look at the next card. I only have 3 crappy swords left in my hand, so I can only get to a maximum of 3 strength, so I can't defeat this monster. I'm going to play 1 more crappy sword for movement to take another step. It's an item called the OK Sword and only costs 1 energy. I'll play 1 sword for 1 energy in order to buy that. The bought card comes straight to my hand. I play the crappy sword for 1 more movement, have a look at the last card. It's an item card. I only have 1 card left in my hand, so 1 energy, so I can't buy the fine sword. I choose to leave it face down. That's the end of my turn because there's nothing more I can do. The marker card goes back to the entrance of the dungeon. You fill up with any spots that have had their cards removed, fill up with a face-down card, and the other player takes their turn. As I said, the other player won't be able to move past this 3rd card without first defeating it, and 4 strength is a fairly tall ask from a starting hand, so it's unlikely they'll be able to progress far into the dungeon. This wasn't a bad start. Having a stronger weapon card in my hand is a good thing. And next turn I'll be drawing the halfway decent card, the Awkward Sword, so I'll actually have a decent amount of strength in my hand next turn as it is. that's the basic gameplay. One small wrinkle in this is the rental cards up here. They're never in anyone's deck or in anyone's hand, but anybody can pay 1 energy to rent this card at the beginning of their turn before they move into the dungeon, in order to have access to that card for this turn. So because I peeked at it in a previous turn perhaps, know that this is a door card. So I pay 1 energy to have access to the key for this turn. Then I play my boots for 2 movement, and I move to this card. I peek at it, it's a door, so I don't have to reveal it, but I intend to beat it, so I do reveal it. Then I play the key, which is the requirement for this card, and this card goes into my trophy pile. I then would move on to the fishman, don't have enough strength in my hand to beat the fishman, so that's the end of my turn. At the end of my turn, when the cards that I've played this turn go to my discard pile, the rental card goes back there to be available for all other players in all other turns. And that's it. It's a fairly simple game. The rules are very simple. The gameplay is very easy. However, the way the cards work together makes for a lot of interest in the game. Your starting deck is weak, as with all deck building games. But through buying better equipment, better swords, better armor, and other items that you'll encounter in the dungeon, you can strengthen your hand quite a lot in order to beat stronger and stronger monsters through the game. Being able to remove the weak cards from your deck is a major feature of any deck building game, and there is a mechanism for that as well. The Wither Sword retires a card from your discard pile. The Dissolving Sword retires a card from your deck. The Haunted Armor, when you defeat it, retires 2 cards from your deck or discard, and so on. There's plenty of mechanism for doing this. It's necessary to churn through and get rid of those crappy swords from your deck as quickly as possible so that you're able to continue beating the stronger monsters at the end of the game. The game ends when either the boss has been defeated, in this deck that's the Red Dragon, or when you are unable to fill up to 5 rooms at the end of a turn. The Red Dragon is worth 8 victory points, and that can be enough to skew the game quite a lot. So being able to strengthen your deck to the point where you have 7 strength a turn in your hand is a vital mechanism for coming out of the strong victory point total at the end of the game. Laboratory have made 2 decks for this game, the Red Dragon and the Blue Mammoth. I got to play the Blue Mammoth, I only have the Red Dragon here, but I got to play the Blue Mammoth with the game creators the other day, and I'm quite surprised with how basic the rule set is and how simple the game is to play, how they managed to make the 2 feel quite different to play through. Cards have different abilities, they work together in different ways, the rental cards are slightly different, and the basic mechanisms are very much the same, but the game plays quite differently. I'm looking forward to seeing what they might do with this engine in the future, releasing more decks perhaps. They already have some add-on cards as part of their Kickstarter that you can add in to the decks to make them more interesting, make them more challenging perhaps. And I look forward to seeing what they can do with this engine. The Kickstarter is going at, I think it's $14 a deck, and at that price point, I think it's a no-brainer. It's a very, very fun game to play, and I recommend backing it. As far as weak points in this game goes, I think the only potential problem I can see is that the game may have limited replayability. Because you play till you run out of cards in every playthrough, you see every card every game. There's no surprises coming in what cards come up after you've played through a couple of times. Most of the novelty in the game comes from the way cards combine with each other, and that changes every game because of the nature of a card game. So so there's more replayability than you might think otherwise in a game this simple. But this might be this game's one weak point. As I said, I've only played through a couple of times with the game creators myself, so I certainly haven't gotten to the point where I'm bored. I'm buying both decks on Kickstarter myself, even though I have the preview copy of one in front of me right now. So I'm giving them my support, and I recommend this as a purchase. I think it's a great game. I'm the Dreaded Geek, and that's been a preview of 100 Swords by Laboratory. Thanks for watching.